O God of unexpected love and life, may the words of my mouth and the meditations of all of our hearts follow hard after your Spirit this morning with sincerity and compassion. May we be surprised to find you where we least expect you. And where we depart from your Spirit this morning, may you open the eyes of our hearts. Amen. Well, Pablo Picasso once said, "Every child is an artist. The problem is how to remain an artist once he grows up." I spent a little time thinking about that quote this week because more and more the spiritual life has come to be described as an art. Merriam-Webster's dictionary defines art as something that is created with imagination and skill, and that is beautiful, or that expresses a feeling or an idea. But Picasso is right. Many of us give up art as we grow older. Now, that's not to say that we don't continue to enjoy or appreciate or find deep meaning in the art of others. But a lot of us stop participating in it. Why do you think that is? Children, I've got 2 of them at home, they love to create art. They love to belt out a song or stick their fingers in paint and smear it all around. Why is it, as adults, that we don't belt out the song or put a poem down on paper? Yeah, right.
Something kind of in my wheelhouse a little bit here. Something that I hear all the time when I'm out playing somewhere. People will say, "If I just had talent like you, I would do it, but I don't have any talent, so I'm not or whatever." And you say, well, talent is nice, but there are tens of thousands of hours of dedication that also point to the ability to do something. So that becomes a convenient excuse for a lot of people. Well, I know I don't have the fairy dust was not sprinkled on me to give me this magical ability to create and to be an artist. So why even try? I hear that all the time, and that's typically an excuse.
We relegate it to the experts.
We relegate it to the experts. We don't have talent.
And we don't want somebody to say, "What is that?"
We're worried about what others might say or think. What's that?
You're not in tune.
You're not in tune. Yeah. You know, I think often we're worried that our art will come across just like some big holy mess most of the time. And so yes, I wonder, is it the messiness of art? Is it the open-endedness or the lack of really clear objective of art, that you can make it anything? Is it that blank canvas or page that stares at us, taunting us? Is it our own need for perfection, for having mastered it, for getting it just right, that keeps us? Is it risk aversion? Is it what other people will think? I read this really funny piece the other day, an article about an art student who in a contemporary art museum decided he was going to try an experiment. And so one day he took off his glasses and he set them on the floor by a wall in the contemporary art museum. And then he stood back and he watched what happened. And people, as they were going through the museum, they would stop and they would stare at those glasses. And they would comment on this piece of art. What could it possibly mean? Isn't it so brilliant? He said some people spent more than an hour standing there in front of these glasses, looking at them. And I think when we talk about the spiritual life, being like an art. I think sometimes we're a bit worried that we will seek God the way contemporary art seeks beauty and meaning, and we'll end up distracted from the real art by the glasses lying on the floor. I like to think of prophets as artists. They're daring and they're bold. They take risks. And their lives and their stories can get really messy sometimes. And surely some of them had to wonder at different points if their vision for creating something beautiful, this sense or this calling or these words they were getting from God, if they were leading them into a masterpiece, or if they were just leading them into a mess. If they were just like putting glasses on the floor, not real art. And I have to admit, when I first heard the story of Elijah and this widow, I thought, oh gosh, this is one of those stories where this prophet, this artist, has just gone a little over the deep end. I thought, how dare Elijah take food from this woman who can't even feed herself and her child? What a selfish patriarchal prick. Really, that's what I thought years ago when I first read this, and even when I picked up this passage this week and read it, I thought, what are you doing, Elijah? And well, sure, Elijah might say, oh, but God told me to. But come on. That's the most overused excuse in history. And we've seen that go awry plenty of times. Are we really supposed to believe that God told Elijah to go and take food from a starving woman and her child? Now, either Elijah had some prophetic, artistic vision, or at least trust that God really does, or this is just a recipe for a cruel disaster. That's what I was thinking when I first looked at this passage. And then a commentator I was reading reminded me that this woman is on the verge of a double suicide with her son, essentially. She's given up on life. And I thought of what Elijah might be like today. Such scrubby, scrawny guy who's been eating the leftovers of pigeons. Right before we hear this story, we hear how God has sent Elijah out to live by a river for a little while, and that ravens were bringing him food. So here's this guy, and he gets this sense that he needs to go to this woman. And when he arrives, he finds this woman who has given up on life. And he hears her uttering those terrible words of resignation that any of us who have been close to suicide have heard. I can't go on. There's nothing left. I'm empty. And I imagined him saying, okay, but would you mind sharing a little food with me first? And so this woman makes him some food, and they share a meal. And one day goes by, and they find together that they have enough to live. And they do this again, and they keep sharing meals, and they find day after day that there's enough to live. Now, of course, this is not the only miracle story we hear in our Bible where food or resources multiply to become enough when they are shared in community. We're told many stories of Jesus with crowds, breaking bread and a small amount turning into enough for the crowd to eat. We're told of the people, the Hebrew people who have just left Egypt, sharing food out in their desert wanderings and finding that they had enough. And it's never entirely clear in these miracle stories whether the food is multiplying because God is superseding the laws of nature and it's literally multiplying, or whether it's multiplying because together with God and coming together as a community, they start to share what they have and to support one another, and they discover that it's enough. But you see, I think Elijah's request for food might be his talk her off the ledge speech for this woman. I think God may have sent Elijah to her not to get a handout of food, but to break bread with her and share a meal with her and become community and support and encouragement for her. With nothing left to lose, this woman dares to try Elijah's experiment in abundant living. She decides to share what she has with him. And Elijah dares to trust that this woman who says that she has nothing to offer does have something to offer him. And they discover together the abundance and the gift of enough. I wonder if you, or someone you know, has ever experienced or felt desolation like that woman was feeling. Now, you may not have given up on life or been on the verge of suicide, but I wonder if you've experienced desolation. The word desolation comes from the Latin root desolar, and it means to abandon. So at its most basic, desolation means literally or figuratively to feel abandoned or alone. When we use the word, we often are talking about a landscape. We'll say a desolate landscape. A desolate landscape is an empty place. It's a place that's devoid of life or beauty. It lacks the animals or the plants necessary to sustain life. And we usually picture places of desolation as these monochromatic places, gray or brown or white, places where the land sort of fades into the sky, where temperatures are extreme, and where we imagine if we were lost, it would be the worst kind of lost imaginable. Desolation is not usually a place we want to be, and sometimes I think it feels a little bit like an inescapable place we desperately want to escape. And a lot of things can leave us feeling desolate or empty. I certainly know that the loss of a loved one, like the loss of our friend and brother Lloyd this week, made many of his friends and family feel a sense of desolation. It can also be a career that we thought defined us, that comes to an end and leaves us feeling desolate. It can be the ending of a relationship or a major fight or conflict with a loved one. It can be the loss of physical or mental capabilities we once had, the loss of independence, or in this woman's case, feeling a very physical loss, like there's not enough to keep her going in life, physically not enough to keep her going. And as I've dug into the sacred texts, I've noticed that there are a lot of times that our sacred stories are set in places of desolation or among people who are experiencing a sense of desolation. But I've come to wonder through reading many of these stories if we might better think about desolate places, not as empty places, but as blank canvases. You know, I imagine that in large part, we have so many of these stories that have been passed down to us because it is in those places where we feel desolate, or we feel abandoned or alone or devoid of what we need for life. When we wonder if God is there, we wonder if God will show up. We wonder if God, too, has abandoned us. And I imagine the people who wrote down these stories knew how important it would be for us to hear stories and to hear witness of God showing up and God breaking into those desolate places. You know, these are the kind of stories that help us lift the paintbrush of hope. They help us imagine what could be. They help us figure out how to make life beautiful, even in the midst of despair. They're essentially the stories that teach us the art of abundant living. How to live with a sense of abundance even when we're faced with real scarcity. I've visited quite a few nursing homes in my time here in Florida. And I have to say sometimes, not always, but sometimes I have experienced nursing homes to be places of desolation. Sometimes I walked in and eyes are glazed over and the light of life seems to have left some of the faces and shoulders are slumped and there just seems to be this quiet resignation. And we're just biding time until we get to the end. But I heard recently about a nursing home in Seattle and a few that are in Scandinavia, and they've actually put preschools into these nursing homes. And the young and the old, they dance and they sing together, and they paint and they color together, and they tie their shoes together, and they make sandwiches for the homeless together. And it turns out that these two populations of society that are largely deemed helpless, the one thought not to have much to offer anymore, and the other thought not to have much to offer yet. It turns out that these two actually have a lot to offer one another, and that they can find an abundance by doing life together. They've noticed that when the kids come in the morning, that those glazed over eyes and those slumped over shoulders suddenly perk up. And it's like these older people are coming back to life again. There was even a story of one woman. She was an elderly Alzheimer's patient at the nursing home. And she couldn't even speak or form words or sentences anymore. But they brought her into the nursery where the babies are. And somehow she tapped into that part of her brain that had raised several children. Suddenly she was speaking in full sentences. I wonder how you might find ways of doing life together with someone else that might help you discover the gift of enough. I wonder who it is that God is sending you to share a meal with and bring hope. And I wonder how you might engage in the art of abundant living. I wonder wonder how you might raise your brush of hope and imagination. May God be with us as we learn the profound lessons of sharing a meal and breaking bread together. Amen.
Amen.